Hello, everybody. It is Corey Poirier. Excited to be back again today. Excited to have with me two-time Olympic gold medalist Heather Moyse, a PEI native as well. Heather, I'd love to maybe jump right into things, and rather than me do a big bio, perhaps you can give us a little bit of a Reader's Digest version of your background for our viewers who may not have heard of you before, which, you know, it may not be a lot of them, but there's some, I'm sure.
Well, I was born and raised in Prince Edward Island. I have a master's degree in occupational therapy, and I'm a 3-sport national athlete. I represented Canada in track cycling, in rugby, and also in bobsledding. And bobsledding is the sport for which I was able to bring home a couple of gold medals at the Vancouver Olympics and the Sochi Olympics. And yeah, and since then I've been really fortunate to have been, I guess, afforded the opportunity to speak all across the country and all over the place. And it's been remarkable transitioning from being in academics and kind of working out in the real world to, you know, becoming a full-time elite athlete, to now becoming a speaker whose goal is simply to empower other people and realize that we're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for.
Awesome stuff. So Heather, I guess my first starting point is on the speaking side. I know we talked before about the fact that you didn't anticipate going into the Olympics or going into bobsleigh. Did you anticipate ever getting on the stage and speaking and actually getting paid to do it? Is that something that you planned or thought might happen in your life?
No, that certainly wasn't. I mean, I was on stage and I was paid to be on stage for one summer, but that was in theater. Like, I was performing for a summer, which was it was crazy and a wonderful summer. But no, to get paid to go and speak, it was never something that I actually thought about, never something that even crossed my mind as an athlete. It did not cross my mind, but as speaking engagements started coming after Vancouver, I started realizing the impact that even just simply pursuing something and, you know, kind of analyzing what it takes in order to achieve something, whether achieve greatness and higher levels of success. I realized how having 2 gold medals, it's no longer the reason I'm being asked to speak anymore, but it certainly affords me the platform to be able to deliver messages on how to reach a higher level of success in whether it's your personal life, your family life, your business life, or whatever. It's sort of transferable characteristics and skills and attributes that kind of carry you through. So,
and now, you know, something that I'm sure other speakers might think is they might think, oh, well, you know, somebody has some gold medals. It might be, let's say, easier to, I'm going to say, share your message and get on the stage. But I'm sure, and you can talk to this as well, I mean, I shouldn't assume, but my thinking is there may be some benefits of it, but there may be also some challenges with it, whereas somebody might think, okay, well, she's coming in as an Olympic gold medalist and not necessarily a speaker. Did you run into that in both sides of that?
I have, yes. And it's still a little bit of a challenge. What I've come to realize is that those 2 gold medals have, you know, gotten me the foot in the door. But for the first while, the year following the Olympic Games, I realized that I was being invited to speak because it was a cool factor for a conference or convention, that they really didn't care. They really actually didn't care so much whether I could actually speak well or not, that it was just kind of let's watch this girl we've seen on TV for the last little while and carried our flag at closing ceremonies, and, you know, like, let's have this cool factor for a conference and convention. And then I was getting comments afterwards saying, oh my gosh, you're a really great speaker. You should consider doing this for a living. And in my head, I was like, but I am doing this for a living because you just paid me to come. But then I started realizing that most athletes, their intention is not to be a speaker. Their intention is simply to be an athlete and represent their country the best they can and train to be an athlete. And so most of them aren't very well spoken, or they're not, but without any judgment, because that's not what they're training for. That's not what their intention is. So if you want to just kind of hear a story or just bring someone in to see some gold medals, then, maybe it's more so like an appearance fee and have someone come in and take pictures and sign autographs and that sort of thing. But it certainly has been a difficult challenge. But what I've realized is that those people who hired me as a cool factor that first year, I'm now getting events because people who've heard me speak before. So they're like, we know that you can develop a message. We know that you incorporate stuff from the company, all of that different stuff. So it's been really, really a remarkable kind of transition, but it's been an interesting one. It's almost like you kind of get your foot in, but then you have to develop your reputation on your own, which is fair enough. But you have to work hard at developing that extra platform and that reputation to ensure that people know that you're going to deliver a really great message that's applicable for whatever their conference or convention or meetings and that sort of thing are.
So that brings up another, I guess we'll say, interesting jump off point is when you mentioned a message for them that they can take away and maybe apply to their lives or what have you. Has that been what you've learned is the difference between, let's say, somebody that's going in, like you said, to be kind of the wow factor or the keynote because of the name versus somebody that's going in to say deliver on what their goals are, the takeaways from the conference, or maybe the conference is we want to show the members that when they come to our conference, they walk away and they have stuff they can actually execute on in their business or life the next day. Have you, I guess we'll say, learned that was a big part of it, is being able to, as you said, give a takeaway or some value they can walk away with and use in their life versus just that wow factor?
Oh, for sure. I think that, for me, I think that's the most important thing. I don't want to, my whole point is not just to be like, hi, here's my story. When I do a talk, I usually have a conference call with the event planners prior to it to find out what they're trying to get across to their clients and that's not even just athlete speakers. A lot of expert speakers who are speaking on a topic, they're just speaking on a topic as well. They're not calling to find out how to relate it to those particular people. So it's been really, really interesting. I've learned a ton about cajillions of companies across the country, so it's been amazing. But it is, I think that people, if they're hiring speakers, just need to be fully self-aware of what their intentions are in hiring a speaker. If they want to just hire a cool factor, like I said before, maybe it's an appearance fee. Like maybe you can go and, after having someone else come and speak as a keynote for a dinner, which is really going to leave an impact, an impression on people, and have them suddenly, thinking about ways that they can improve the quality of their life and shift their approach to business and their careers and different things like that, and suddenly be motivated to make a change in their lives. And then, have a cool factor after or before, and that's a lot with professional athletes too, right? People grow up watching NHL hockey players, and then they often hire them to come in and speak. And it's, I've heard some of those speakers, and it's just a different environment. It's totally it's a different reason for bringing people in. And they all kind of have their purpose, but as long as you kind of understand the purpose, then it's
okay.
Yeah.
So this kind of backs up what you've been saying in terms of how important it is for you to be, as you say, a speaker that just happens to have 2 gold medals versus a gold medalist who is happy to be speaking. Is, I saw you at the CAPS conference this year, and I think that on its own speaks volumes because you were there trying to, obviously, I shouldn't assume again, but I think you were there probably trying to improve your craft. And so I guess my question out of that is, do you think it's important for speakers or anybody in any field to go and learn from others in the craft and mingle and see what people are doing really well versus just trying to wing it every week?
Oh my gosh, I think if you take what you do seriously, there's nothing, you don't wing it. It's the same as being an athlete. Like you train to perfect what you do. If you don't, fair enough, but it means you're doing it as a hobby, not as a career. And it means you're doing it by the seat of your pants and kind of hoping. And when you hope, you may get a stroke of luck, but most likely you don't. And so again, as long as people are aware of what they're doing, just go and do it if you want. But if you want to be better at it and you want to get better at what you're doing and get a better reputation for giving consistently quality presentations, and whether that's presentation on a sporting field, whether that's presentation in a business room or like a conference room, or whether it's on stage in front of, thousands of people, then it's it takes practice, and some of that practice is conversing with other people and figuring out how they do it. Some of it is literally just watching other people do it. Some of it is taking extra courses and stuff. And I'm a true believer in growth and development, whether that's in your leadership skills or in your, you know, your technical skills and executing your job. And I think I don't think regardless of what you're doing, you should ever stop growing or developing and learning and that sort of thing. So yeah, absolutely.
And so on the speaking side, I guess if you like, again, visualizing it originally versus what you've learned since then, is it maybe more of a, because I know you're big on challenges and having those challenges in your life, and I'm sure that's kind of what pushes you. Does the speaking industry offer a lot of challenges? Like, is it as tough as you thought it would be? Is it tougher? Is it easier to be on the circuit, traveling, doing all the things that come with being a speaker?
Oh, there are certainly challenges. There are going to be challenges I think in anything when you always want to take something to the next level. And for me, some of the challenges, like I said, were changing people's perception of me as a speaker from being simply a cool factor to being a reputable speaker who's able to deliver like a bang up message that people will leave feeling, you know, empowered at the end of it. And someone who can deliver a quality message. But it's also, the traveling is a bit of a, you know, living out of a suitcase can get a bit tiresome. Like I've been living out of a suitcase now for the last 2 years, I think. So literally, you know, and it's been amazing. Like I'm staying with wonderful friends but it's almost the justification. Well, when do I get my own place? But I'm almost never here. So when do you do that? But I am getting to the point where I'm really lucky. I'm going back home to PEI for most of the summer. I'm hoping. I look at my schedule now, and July is a little more of this traveling back and forth. But August at the moment looks a little bit relaxing for me, so that's good. But come September, I've just kind of acknowledged the fact that for me and my mental state and feeling a little less displaced and all over the place, I think that I'll be finding a place just to kind of call my own for sanity's sake.
You're speaking my language, so I won't go into that.
I know.
Yeah, so I'm living that life too. So I saw, I mean, just as a side note, but it relates, I think, to making an impact. And I know that's a big thing to you, and it's important to you to kind of take the platform you've been given and find ways to make an impact with that message and with your message. And I noticed that you're putting on an event, I guess we'll say a fundraiser in Prince Edward Island. And is it Chicks for Charity? Do I have that right?
Oh, yeah.
And so can you tell us a little bit about that and why it's important? Again, you know, we're talking speaking today, but at the same time, I believe it's about making an impact, and you're doing a similar thing with this fundraiser.
Yeah, well, my message, my kind of personal tagline is we're all capable of way more than we give ourselves credit for. And for me, that implies your personal life, your business, or your, you know, corporate life, but also your ability. We're all capable of way more when it comes to our ability to impact others, whether it's in our community or in the outside world. And so this is actually an idea that came about with the organizer for the Boys and Girls Club in Summerside, PEI. And I'd been kind of helping out and going and attending and being part of that tournament. They have a kind of a 2-day and a pre-dinner before this golf tournament every year. So I've been doing that for a little while. And then we were suddenly brainstorming, realizing that most people who go to these charity golf tournaments are men, who probably more than 95% of them would be men who get their companies to pay for them to have the day off because the money is going to a charity. So the company pays for them to go and they get to go. And we're like, well, why on earth are more women not taking this opportunity? But it seems that not as many women who are working are golfing as much as the men are. So we decided to make a Chicks for Charity tournament, which is only women. And it is for those people who don't golf. For example, my mother does not golf. And she went last year, and her realization of what the tournament really is amazing. It's, if you don't golf, probably the better. You know, you won't get your sights set on golfing a full round because you won't even golf half a round. It's all kind of accommodations, and it's more of a day away from life, kind of pampering day for women. And it's, the men don't need to know what we do at the golf course. It's totally fine. But yeah, it's just, it's really, really, really fun. And if anybody has any questions about kind of what's going on there, or is nervous about not being able to golf, I won't give it away because I'm sure men will be listening, but you really don't need to golf in order to be there. And it's a great time. So they should really, if they're interested, contact the Boys and Girls Club in Summerside, and, you know, Adam Binkley's there, and he can very easily talk about the Chicks for Charity tournament. And I will be there this summer, so I'm really excited. And
so it's kind of like you said, what happens on the golf course stays in the golf course.
Yeah, I don't want to promote that kind of messaging in general, but you know, it's a good time.
Okay, it's a good time, and like you said, there's also even a coolness factor to the fact that it is kind of a mystery. You know?
I mean, it's really not a mystery. It's really not a mystery, but it's not really golf, but yet we're calling it a.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. So Heather, shifting back as we kind of wind down to the speaking side of things, I guess, I know you shared the bill, for example, with John C. Maxwell, and I'm sure that must have been an amazing experience. And that's one of the great things about being a speaker, is the people you probably get to meet. Have you had any people that you would say have become sort of your mentors to help you in speaking? And if you have, how important has that been?
Yeah, John Maxwell, actually. To be perfectly frank, I was an athlete. I hadn't been in an industry where you're listening to a lot of speakers all the time, or, you know, reading self-help books and kind of personal growth and development things. And so I got into that world kind of, you know, when I realized what an impact I could make for people. And all of a sudden I got, you know, hired to, or asked if I would, you know, open for 3 sessions in this day, like kind of share the stage with John Maxwell. And I was like, sure. And so all I knew about him was that he was an author, kind of an expert on leadership and that sort of thing. And so I kind of looked into him a little bit like that, but I had no idea the extent and the reach that this man holds and who he is. And I mean, I didn't even realize that until like a couple of months later. But that day was amazing. He, after sessions and between sessions, he and I would chat a little bit. And then finally at the very end, he said, he paid me a very big compliment, which I didn't even which I considered a big compliment regardless of even knowing who he was, or not at the time, as it would have it. But he basically said, I hear a lot of speakers, because this is what I do, but very rarely do I hear a speaker who can connect as well to an audience as you can. And I would love to mentor you. So I was very flattered that someone would think, you know, that much of my speaking ability in order to mentor me. And so he's been great. He's crazy busy and he's down in the States and stuff. So, but we have phone calls every once in a while, or a text message every once in a while if I have a question. And in terms of just guidance, in terms of just the next steps in the business side of it. And it's been very helpful.
And so down to my last couple of quick questions, but you mentioned connection, and that's such an important thing as a speaker. So, and obviously some people naturally have it or get it, and some people have to work at it really hard. Is there anything you've noticed, you know, as a tip or two that you could give to people about how to connect better with an audience, especially people that are just starting, but in general?
It is difficult for some people to just feel natural, be able to have a natural conversation on the stage. I think if you think of it more as telling a story and have it being a conversation, it may be a one-sided conversation on the most part, but a conversation instead of presenting information, that definitely helps. Sometimes if you're able to make light of a situation, kind of joke about yourself a little bit, that can also take a little bit of stress or tension and nervousness away. It's really, I think, about delivery and about being able to connect. Well, I guess that's what we're talking about. But yeah, I think if you think of it more as a conversation instead of as a presentation, you're not acting. If they're acting, they would pay to go to the theater and see you, do a monologue on stage. It's not that. It really is a conversation, and some speakers are better at kind of opening it up and actually having a dialogue with people or having them respond to things than other people. But on the most part, if you basically tell them what you want to say as though you're telling it to a couple people in a pub or in a living room or in a coffee shop, then often they find that speaker so relatable and they get drawn in because they just want to hear that person. They want to chat with that person.
Awesome stuff. So my last official question, and then I'll give you a heads up. The unofficial will just be how we can learn more.
Okay.
Very important question. But the last official question is, if you were sitting across, I mean, you don't have to pick the age, but if you were sitting across from Heather Moyse, who hasn't done a talk, that just before you did that first talk, knowing what you know since, and you've learned since, and you could give her a piece of advice or two about the speaking industry, what do you think you might tell her?
About the speaking industry or about presentation style?
You can pick both or either, whichever you prefer.
Oh goodness, that's tricky. Okay. I think first of all, it would be practice. Like I'm thinking of one of the first ones that I did, and I think it's about practicing your material so that it flows, even if you have to have some notes, even if you have to have whatever, that it just literally flows so it's more conversationable instead of reading, like needing to rely on your notes. But in terms of the business side, I would say you do have to figure out your value, and it's okay to say no to some things. You need to, I'm not saying that you need to price yourself out of a market or whatever, but for myself, for example, I need to set a certain amount of ones that I do, my own like the charities that I'm really passionate about. I do those, for free. But beyond that, it's really hard to say no to charities, but there are no bad charities. Mm-hmm. And if you do charities all the time, or not-for-profits, they actually do make money. Like it's learning all these different things. And when they're utilizing you to attract people and bring people in, then they are raising money and they're using you to do it. And so it's a very tricky business in that sense. But if you kind of have different nominal sections and you do say 10 in this for free or 10 pro bonos and you do 10 at this amount and then you do, then the rest are within the range that you normally would typically charge for a normal corporate event, then it helps you not run around like ragged and get exhausted and make yourself sick. And it helps you give time to plan more keynotes and more workshops and more different things like this to help progress your own business. So
I totally get that. 15 years later, and that's still the biggest challenge, is having somebody that you really want to help come to you, and you're sitting on the fence going, what do I do? And maybe you've already done, like you said, that certain allotment, but this is such a good cause. I'll just say the same. I'll kind of stop it there and say
it's very difficult. And it's everyone's choice. Like some people may want to do only a few where they make money, and all the other ones they feel better and because maybe they have a full-time job and this is just something that they do for fun and enjoyment. And everybody kind of has a different level of what they're using speaking for. So, if their whole passion is just, I just want to spread the word, I don't care how much you pay, my thing is all about the message, then it's a little bit different. But for people where this is their full-time job, you really have to value your sanity, your downtime, because often as a speaker, you realize you don't have evenings and you don't have weekends. It's a wonderful career in terms of the flexibility, but sometimes you have to remind yourself that you need recovery time.
Yeah, I just did a conference that started we got there to Saturday evening. The conference started Sunday and it ran Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So it's 4 days roughly in St. Andrews in New Brunswick at the Algonquin. And so you go, okay, great. I'm at this amazing resort, kind of a great experience. And I think there was like 4 hours that I wasn't, I was on the stage. I was a facilitator, moderator, and I had speaking as well. So I did 2 breakouts and then I was a facilitator, moderator for every panelist.
Yeah.
So essentially, and it went from basically 7 in the morning and we finished each night at 10, and there was a comic and a performer each of the nights, but you're still mingling with your client, you're still there. So we probably had 4 hours that wasn't actually working or sleeping.
Yeah.
You think, oh, this is going to be amazing, 4 days away, it's gorgeous. And you do have some of those times, but you're right. I mean, it's not, some people think it's awesome. You get to just go and enjoy this life, and they see the pictures of the traveling, but maybe you took that picture running between the airport and the talk you're giving.
Which is most often the case, yeah.
Absolutely. So Heather, the last, like I said, unofficial, but perhaps most important question is somebody listening to this who's looking to hire a speaker, or somebody who knows of somebody who may be looking to hire a speaker. First of all, where would you tell them to connect with you? Or that can be second. And the second part is, what would they bring you in for? You said sometimes you have to say no, it might not be the right fit. So would it be for you corporate clients, conventions, association meetings? Like, it would be all of the above?
Yeah, actually, I've been really lucky. I've spoken to government departments, educators, software companies, like a number of financial institutions. Agricultural associations. I've been pretty lucky actually to have spread it across the gamut, because what I touch on mostly is, overcoming obstacles and being faced with, when you're presented with a problem, choosing to see it as a challenge. And that kind of is something that everyone faces. Like, I've spoken to schools and sports teams, and it just kind of covers everything, because the qualities it takes to be successful as an athlete are the same qualities it takes to be successful in any occupation or industry. And I'm not referring to anything to do with physical, the execution of physical skills or technical skills or anything. It's literally the qualities and characteristics. And it's been really, really great. So I would say if any kind of organization is looking at overcome things about facing challenges, overcoming obstacles. For me, it's a lot about shifting in perspective. And if you can get a shift in perspective, then you also get a shift in behavior, which can teaches people to kind of increase the quality of their lives. It's been fantastic. And if anyone's really interested, they can easily contact me through my website, www.heathermoyse.com. I've also sometimes there's various speakers bureaus who also contact me, and there's some that I work with a little more than others. But yeah, it's pretty easy to get in touch with me, and then someone will get back to them and figure out scheduling and budgets and all that sort of thing. And there are testimonials on there, and there's a bit more information on my website. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Heather Moyse, this has been an absolute pleasure. I love it whenever Islanders are out there making waves and inspiring people, and you're certainly doing that every day. So thank you for all that you're doing. I think it also raises the awareness about PEI and what's possible, even if you're from a small little province like you and I are. So thank you for making big things happen and inspiring people daily.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. We'll chat soon.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.